So I've been thinking that sometimes I approach the Bible as if they are full of stories that are just floating around the sky somewhere. And by that I mean I don't really think about how they are connected to what comes before it and what comes after it. You know, there are so many famous Bible stories we know and we could tell it by memory, but sometimes we seem to think they are just floating around out there and they are not connected to any kind of bigger story. So imagine for a moment I told you a story about a ball in the kingdom, and during this ball, some young woman showed up and she addressed all the family and she comes out of her beautiful carriage and nobody knows who she is. But the prince, he really takes a liking to her and he asks her to dance and they dance all night and he's really, falling in love with this mystery woman. But then suddenly at midnight, this woman, she just takes off and she leaves him, and he's like, why did she leave me? And that's the end of the story. Well, okay, that would be a pretty interesting story, but it would be even better if we knew what happened beforehand, that this young woman was named Cinderella, and she had an evil stepmother, and she overcame all this trouble to just get to the ball. And also, it makes it even better if we know what happened after the ball, where the prince, finds her after so much searching, and they never happily ever after. So, if you only take the male part of Cinderella, it might be a good story, but we miss so much of it, and I think that's what we do with these Bible stories. Now, I'll give you an example of how this recently hit me. So one of my favorite Bible characters is Elijah. I love the prophet Elijah. I love how human he is. He has so many highs and lows, and I just really resonate with this character. Now, Elijah first appears in 1 Kings 17, and he seems to kind of come out of nowhere. Like, suddenly it just says, now Elijah told King Ahab that there will be a drought. So he tells King Ahab that it's not going to rain for a while, and then suddenly we see Elijah in the middle of the desert, basically, and he's being fed by birds and lapping up water in the river, and basically drinks is dry. And you're like, okay, wow, this guy is pretty mysterious. Like, what's the deal here? But this time, as I was reading, I tried to connect Elijah's introduction to what was happening right before. And the Book of Kings, you basically get a record of all the kings of Israel. So early in the book, there's kind of like this civil war, and Israel breaks into two kingdoms. You have the kingdom in the north called Israel, and the kingdom in the south called Judah. And both of these kingdoms have their own separate kings. And the Book of Kings basically goes back and forth between this king in the north and this king in the south and give a summary of what they did. And you see, as you read in the north, you get these records of really bad kings. And basically, the criteria for a bad king is they did not follow God. They basically forgot about God and they started going their own way. And in Kings 16, it gets really bad. You have this one palace administrator that assassinates the king of Israel and crowns himself king. And then that guy who becomes king, he gets to be king for 7 whole days before he gets killed off. So really, I've never seen the Game of Thrones, but I would guess this might be similar to the Game of Thrones here. And then things get worse, you get other kings, but then at the very end of chapter 16, you get King Ahab becoming king of Israel. And King Ahab is very famous. I mean, he ends up in the book Moby Dick later, right? Captain Ahab. But I guess he was named after this king who was just a very bad king. And in 1 Kings 16 and verse 20, it says these words: Ahab did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. And why? Why was he so bad? Well, let's see. It says he set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal. So he started worshiping this false god named Baal. And, this is like the pinnacle of turning against God because, a lot of these other gods, they demanded so much. They demanded, child sacrifice or other terrible things. And so, by the time we get to 1 Kings 17, we get a little bit of a bigger picture. Now, it seems that God has had enough of these evil kings. He's been patient, king after king, but now Ahab gets to be too much. And so now we see Elijah come onto the scene, and it may seem like out of nowhere, but really, I think God has been waiting and planning, and now we see this mysterious prophet Elijah get raised up on God and say, hey, God says, hey, go tell Ahab that I'm gonna cut off the water supply for a while. And then later on, we see Elijah go to a battle with the god Baal, and it's kind of a humorous story about how he sets up this competition between God and Baal, and it's a great story. 1 Kings 17. But my point is that, by itself, 1 Kings 17 is a very cool story. But knowing the backstory, knowing what comes before it, gives us an even bigger picture. So, remember, and I'll remember this because I'm just realizing this myself too, that the Bible stories, the ones we love, they are not just floating stories in the sky. They are connected to each other. And the more we know about what comes before, the more we will appreciate what the story is trying to tell us. I hope that was really helpful for you. I'm gonna try to be doing that too. And let me know what you think in the comments and how having a bigger context has ever helped you in your Bible study reading. And hey, if you like the video, I would really like if you could like it and subscribe. And if you would like to watch another video of one of these little devotionals, you can check out this video right over here. Have a great day.